All right, now that we are fully welcomed, we're gonna get kicked off with our first opening plenary. A lot of the reasons why we're here in Seattle, as Representative Santos, Ron mentioned, and others, that it is because, one of the reasons is because we were identified as one of the 11 most endangered places in the country, along with Philadelphia, Chinatown, and earlier this year, a little Tokyo and Los Angeles. So I'd like to welcome to the front row seats, as well as Moderator Dee Gao from the National Trust for Historic Preservation, Philadelphia's Chinatown Deborah Wei with Asian Americans United, and John Chin, Philadelphia Chinatown Development Corporation, Seattle Chinatown International District with Transit Equity for All's Brien Chow and Joe Reilly, and Little Tokyo Community Council, Kristin Fukushima, and Japanese American National Museum, and APIAHiP board member, and Little Tokyo Historical Society, Kristin Hayashi. And please welcome them, and we will get started.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dee Gao. I am currently Senior Director of Research and Development at the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and I'm really excited to be here today at my first APIAHiP forum. I want to thank you for inviting me to moderate the opening plenary. And for bringing together all of us, including community advocates from these three communities that share this unique distinction of being recently nominated as some of the most endangered historic communities for countries. And we're here today to talk about some of the community activism that's taking place across these three iconic neighborhoods that are really critical to our national identity. Even though I live in New York today, I'm proud to also be here as a Seattle native, and I have a personal connection to this place as well. My father, when I was growing up, my father worked on this very block on South Weller Street, and I spent a lot of time as a kid like the sidewalks outside of this very building that we're here in today. So it's really a full circle moment for me to be able to kind of marry that personal and professional experience I have. And it's one of the reasons why my experience, my connection, and the belonging that I felt in this neighborhood was one of the reasons why I got into historic preservation and decided to pursue a master's degree at University of Pennsylvania and found myself in this field today. Today, I'm also the only Asian American employee at the National Trust who's currently serving in senior leadership. And since I joined the National Trust in 2017, for as long as I've been at the Trust, and I know this hasn't always been the case, telling the full American story has been a core part of the mission that the organization strives toward. And I think we can all acknowledge that there's a lot more work to be done, but also celebrate how long the way we've come in the past few years, thanks to the work of APIAHiP and to so many people in this room. And today, also in my work, I have the privilege and honor of working with community leaders across the country to talk about how we can mobilize national preservation action to support a new initiative that we've been launching called the America's Chinatown Initiative. We started during a pandemic when so many Chinatown communities around the country were struggling and fighting for their survival. We conducted a national scan and identified and mapped about 83 different Chinatowns, and we found that out of the dozens of the earliest Chinatowns that formed in the 1800s in this country, only about 14 of them still exist in some form. And some of which are barely coming on. Last year, we worked together to list Philadelphia Chinatown and the Seattle Chinatown International District to the 11 Most Endangered Historic Places program, which today is the National Trust's largest national advocacy campaign. And this was the first time in the history of the program, that any Chinatown had ever been recognized on the list. And this year, we continue to expand this mission as Little Tokyo joined over 350 other previously designated endangered sites. The last and only time an Asian Pacific Islander community was recognized on the 11 most endangered list with Little Manila in Stockton, California in 2003. So collectively, these places have received national recognition to help raise awareness of a not so happy issue, which is the existential threats that they're currently facing, but also to draw attention to the vital purpose these communities still serve. Now in its 37th year, the 11 Most Endangered program uplifts and catalyzes community-led restoration through what is essentially a high-impact public awareness campaign. And it brings increased visibility, public attention, new resources to help activate these historic places for the public good. And placement on this list, while it may be a list of shame, it can be a powerful tool for local advocates to rally public support around a critical threat and to build public pressure to allow it to change of course when one is committed. And in a few cases, let's see if I can get this. Very cool. And in a few cases, like the Harada House or the Trujillo Adobe in Riverside, California, or Camp Naco in Southwest Arizona, local advocates have even leveraged the Luck Most designation to raise millions of dollars in critical funding. And in the first 7 days of the Luck Most campaign last year, we generated 1,193 news clips that reached a combined potential audience of 4.5 billion readers, listeners, and viewers. That is the official stat. Oregon right now saying the country's 19 billion people on this planet, but you get the idea. This is the public awareness campaign that has high impact around the world. By featuring the stories of the 3 neighborhoods that we'll hear more about today, we wanted to draw attention to the fact that throughout history, working class communities around the country have fought and continue to fight large-scale development projects that demand that communities of color accept disproportionate harm in the name of progress for all. Each of the communities that we'll hear from today have contended with major transit development projects, sports stadiums, convention centers, and the list goes on. But as we build awareness of the systemic nature of the threats that these communities face, it's also important that we document how these communities are responding to these threats and working together to secure their futures. So that's the focus of today's plenary, where we'll learn from each other about the power of community and to combat erasure and to protect culture for future times. So now we'll hear directly from the advocate. We have 3 presentations today, and then we'll then I'll launch into a group discussion and also reserve time at the end for questions from the audience. So now I'd love to invite John Shin from Philadelphia, Chinatown Development Corporation, and Debbie Wade in Philadelphia, Chinatown, who flew the farthest to be with us today. And are joining during a really crucial political moment for Philadelphia, Chinatown, and the fight against the arena. So but if you'd like to come up on stage, come to that.
Yeah.
You're
Good morning, everybody. And I really appreciated the introduction and welcoming remarks to today's conference. I think it set the tone for my remarks that I wanted to share and focus a little bit on, why are our places so important to us? What's the connection to our history, and what are our battles across all our communities that we face? And Dean just mentioned there's a systemic problem that we all have to face, and it's part of racism that we experience as a people, as immigrants to this country. So with that, wanting to spend a little bit of time of what our place is, and why did we come to these states to build our businesses and our families. And I think the fact is that our Chinatown, our communities were founded because we found a place that was a sanctuary away from racism. And that's very true for Philadelphia's Chinatown, P271. These are photos in our Chinatown, and I will share this with you. It was a very desired place for Chinatown. Not unlike the Red District, the Boston, the Bowery in New York City. Our Chinatown was in Skid Row, and it was a place that nobody wanted to live or raise a family. When we found this as our home, and it worked for us because we were living in a place where we got raised. But it became our community. It became our place for safe haven. And we weren't distracted from this racism. We're able to focus on our economic mobility. We're able to focus on raising our families. And it wasn't a perfect community. It wasn't a perfect neighborhood. I grew up in the 70s, and this is the famous Tropicana former opera house. When I grew up, it was a burlesque place, and in every way we remember that. This is the kind of community that we grew up in. This is Ames Street, vibrant commercial places, but it wasn't, but this entire block was demolished as part of Philadelphia's urban renewal. Chinatown was not just in the Independence Hall urban renewal plan, we're also in the Franklin urban renewal plan. So our Chinatown was identified as a place of blight and as a place that needed renewal. Get rid of the blight and don't think too much about the people. This is a photo of one of the main streets, our Philadelphia Chinatown Ray Street. You see the sign of the grocery store there. This was one of our first affordable housing development projects for low-income families, multi-family development from 30% of every median income to 60%. Again, this is not a perfect neighborhood that most people of means want to raise their family, but this was our home for decades. And during this time, we just didn't sit still. We built our neighborhood. We added amenities. This is a photo of the China French 8 that we developed in 1983 with our sister city, Tianjin, China. The artisans came from China, and all the materials and authentic root came from China, and as well tonight, we need to develop residents, our homes. We built mixed-income housing in Chinatown, so families could live in decent, affordable housing. To the top back project on a abandoned Vagus World. The bottom right is given some which was 20 units of housing above where it was stored out. We also did work to protect our communities during COVID-19 when the city of Philadelphia just completely failed in its equitable approach to the vaccination of the city, not just for the Asian community, for the African American community. We went ahead and taught the public health department how to deliver equitable vaccinations. We hosted our own vaccinations in our own community at being decided. Business. We had 200 active retail business Chinatown. And our organization supports the growth and sustainability of businesses because we know that our communities like Chinatown are like a three-legged stool. A strong, vibrant commercial community, a heavy growing presence of residential community with its growing amenities to service this population. And third, probably really important, is the fact that our communities are hubs of cultural authenticity and celebration. and community has to happen the programming. We have to continue and instill programming for our next generations. And the bottom right is our old generation. These are what I call our old guys of Chinatown in the 60s and 70s. Chinatown, they grew up in Chinatown, but Chinatown remains their home today. But this doesn't happen in a vacuum. Our sustainability of our communities does not happen in a vacuum. We're talking a little bit about Kristen and Tamiko Santos and Dr. Brooks talk about legislative and government efforts to plan to sustain our communities. So here you have a photo of our huge project, the Chinatown Stitch Project, which we were awarded $108 million from the U.S. Department of Transportation to reconnect our Chinatown community that was divided by the Street Expressway, I-676. So that project construction will start in sometime in 2027. But you can see here that our efforts of community organizing, planning led to that successful award. But we also recognize that even though we have a sanctuary neighborhood, there's racism and negative attitudes to our community. So why does someone spray graffiti on our community, on our walls, but not just on walls, but they graffiti on storefront businesses in Chinatown? So this racism or prejudice continues to lag. And it includes this systemic idea that our Chinatowns constantly need improvement, and these big projects like the 76ers Arena are gonna come in and save our neighborhood. They're not saying that they're gonna come in and save the people of our neighborhood. They're gonna come in and reorganize and build up the economy of the neighborhood that needs it. And so what do we do about it? We organize the community, we close community meetings, because the most important thing that we can deliver a message to the city of Philadelphia and our government is that planning for the people, by the people. So we host these forums so that our people's voices got heard, whether through surveying, community meetings. But the arena is just one of the series over the decades, right? We have a photo of our protests against the casinos coming in to Chinatown. We have protests back in the 90s of a federal prison that the New York Manhattan Chinatown is facing, the largest prison project of any neighborhood. And then 2000, the protest at the Phillies baseball stadium coming in our neighborhood. But our organization, Philadelphia Chinatown Development Corporation, was founded in 1966 because of what I just referenced earlier, the Brien Expressway. And through organizing, through the campaign to the reading, right, our own Chinese language reading out, and going out there and having speaking engagements with schools and educating people, using a photography exhibit to tell the story of the history of our Chinatown. And all this is really important, but coming back to the point of why we're here today and the 11 was endangered places, is that designation through the National Trust for Soil Preservation can, in one easy sentence, summarize the plight of our communities and gives it legitimacy without us having to spend an hour to explain to the legislature why they should care about our Chinatown and Philadelphia, our communities across the country, right? That 11th most endangered places is a really simple, very simple sentence that says, okay, we should be listening, but tell us why we should be listening. And what they've done, what he has led since 2017 leading up to 2014 has been pretty amazing. We need to add more of you at the NTHP. We need to bring all our voices together. As I was listening to that talk up here on the stage, I was thinking, we have all these folks in this room into a little part. And if I take the analogy of the railroads that the Chinese railroad built, in geometry, what we see in front of us is a pretty wide trend, right, with the railway ties. And look further and further down, the tracks get narrower and narrower. So all our work together from different places will end up at one point, a focus point that hopefully, we can change the story and build. So I want to leave you with a couple of thoughts here, right? Is that preservation in neighborhood planning is really important. The communication and authority through the National Trust Assert Preservation helps us get there. And this is a mural of our Chinatown that was done to the 125th celebration of our Chinatown being out. And this is one of the most visited places of our Chinatown living, and even more so today with the arena and panel. George Moy was one of the founders of the Peace and Decent organization. I don't know how he did it, but there was a 3.5-story, almost 4-story building in Chinatown. I wish I could kind of on the photo tag, but at the top of that building, as the city of Philadelphia condemned eminent domain to raise all of those homes on that block, 9th Street in Chinatown, to make way to the community red tunnel. This is and will be Chinatown. And that's one of the mantra that motivates me to be here today to talk to you and to do the work that I've been doing in a community that I was born and raised in. And that, this is my motivation. And I'll leave you with just a couple of things and his text. This conference is really amazing to me. I have time here. I'm looking forward to hearing Debbie Way's remarks. And, it was how Dr. Brooks and representatives and to us all about it's our experience, right? That this fight against erasure, our experiences are real. The places that we connect with or grew up in are real. And it's really important that we figure out how to preserve it. So thank you very much.
Good morning. Thank you all for having us come all the way from Philadelphia. And Lee asked me to talk a little bit about this tremendous tradition of resistance that happened in Philadelphia. John represents the long-standing professional way of looking at development, and probably one of the street fighters. So, want to talk about that 150 years of tradition of fighting. It's coming on. Between the 1960s and 1993, and John referenced this, Chinatown experienced a series of massive construction projects that included the 9th Street Expressway to the north, the Gallery Shopping Center to the south, the commuter rim tunnel to the east, and the convention center to the west. All the goods took, heavily impacted Chinatown, and many of which took many of our existing homes. Beginning in 1993, we fought and won other large projects that would kill the community. Federal prison in 1993, baseball stadium in 2000, a casino in 2008, another casino in 2013, and now we are fighting for basketball and bigger. But one thing that helps us is that in having to fight for survival every 5 or 7 years, you develop skills that allow us to move quickly when threats erupt. So in between fighting for things, we spend time building relationships with communities across the city, particularly Black and Brown communities. So when the fight came, I knew what to do. We created 2 coalitions, the Save Chinatown Coalition, with organizations outside of Chinatown,
and the Chinatown Coalition to oppose the arena for organizations that are Chinatown and largely Chinese speaking. We saw this fight was going to be a big one. We know the arena couldn't be defeated without Chinatown, but we also knew that we couldn't beat it with only Chinatown. So multiracial organizing has been key to this fight. We also have a communication strategy. The developers have spent over $5 billion in lobbying money so far, and that is not including the black money for political campaigns. We have a political strategy team, a technical team chaired by Mary Yee, who's out here somewhere, and legal counsel from Albrecht in New York. And then we have an action arm, and that figures out how to engage literally hundreds of volunteers on this campaign. It's called NACIS, No Arena Chinatown Solidarity, and they break down into these hives. Outreach hive does door knocking, tabling, speaking gigs. Medical hive is specifically focused on organizing and researching in the medical community. There are 3 emergency rooms in the area that will be impacted by the traffic of this project. This also led to quite a few spin-off organizations. This is like an incredible campaign now. Opposing the arena, we all work together. They consult with us closely. These include college students, the students for the preservation of Chinatown, high school students who got inspired by Spock and started SASA, which is Students Against the Sixers Arena for baseball students. We have other communities like Washington Square West and the neighborhood. We founded RICE, Restaurant Industry and Small Businesses for Chinatown's existence, that is not Chinatown businesses. It's businesses outside of Chinatown, across the city, who host Cuisine nights and who speak out. Many of them are James Beard Award winners. All these were created by our organizers doing targeted outreach. As a community, as John said, when we aren't fighting existential threats, we're building. Our community knows what is needed and builds the things that sustain the community. In the footprint of what would have been the baseball stadium, since 2000, these things have sprung up. The Hoyu Arts and Cultural Center, Hoyu is an area in Fuzhou, China, that practices a particular festival, and we are the only place outside of China where you can find this festival. We started a charter school, the Folk Arts and Cultural Treasures Charter School, which is now a blue ribbon school. The Asian Arts Initiative opened in that footprint. The Chinese Christian Church and Center built an annex in that footprint. And brand new, the Students for Preservation of Chinatown sat together and said, we also keep fighting the arena, but we want something for ourselves. So they took this notion of fighting the things you don't want and building the things you do, and they took it to heart. An entirely youth-led, youth-run third space for youth across the city. They opened June 30th, and in their short existence, they've become known as an important hub for youth across the city. It's always a hopping place. This is not an unusual photo. Every time I go there, I'm like, what the heck? Okay. We also try to bring tactics that are out of the box. For example, when we were doing opposition research on the developers who are building this arena, we're up against 3 of the largest private equity firms in the world. We're up against Blackstone, Apollo Global, FS Investments, not that big, I call them in the baby billionaire. So we discovered that the United Nations Rapporteur for the Human Right to Housing sanctioned Blackstone for violating international human rights and, quote, causing a worldwide housing crisis. So being optimistic as we were, we Googled that rapporteur, and we found out she's running an international housing organization. Vivani is in Canada, Sam, her colleague in London. We met with them on Zoom, and then Sam conducted a thorough investigation. And they ended up writing a letter to the developers outlining the potential violations to international human rights laws that the project is undergoing. Now, the U.S. doesn't really care about international communities, but the letter is a valuable tool for us. And you can read some of these findings. It disproportionately affects people of Asian heritage. The need to protect the rights of the community outweighs the need for a new basketball arena. Surprise. And we always bring joy. One of the developers, Josh, had this, and he's not only does he own the Sixers, but he owns a DC professional football team, the Washington Commanders. Now, for a city that's sports crazy like Philly, that is definitely a crime. So when Commanders played against the Eagles last year here in Philadelphia, we hired a plane to fly this message and how about a music video? No? Okay. Oh, it started in the wrong place. Shoot, I'm supposed to start at, well, you know what, you can just forward a little bit, Okay, you can forward a little bit more forward. I don't know what happened. I had it set to start at a certain point. Keep going. I think it starts at 114.
Yeah.
And just keep going. What am I doing? No, never mind. Yep, I'll look it up. It's pretty cool. You'll have to look it up somewhere. It is Take It and Take Off Mighty Cyrus's No More Wrecking Ball. But it is on YouTube, it's gotten several thousand hits. We requested, things are heated up. We requested environmental impact studies, and the city said, we requested studies similar to the studies that would have been required by federal law that they had used federal funding. And they promised us environmental impact studies, and they came up with these studies. We made an RLP for the city, we submitted it. They came up with these sham studies. They didn't even do an independent traffic study. They used the one that the developers developed. We filed 90 right-to-know requests, and they rejected every single one of them in a single letter. Yeah, well, all that is working with us to appeal the denials. And by farming out the responsibility of the studies to a quasi-public-private agency, PIDC, they avoid right-to-know because they're not subject to right-to-know laws. A reporter uncovered that all the studies are being bankrolled by the developers, a fact that the developers tried to hide. The so-called economic study is a sham. This nice disclaimer right in the front of the study basically says, this isn't based on anything. We just made this prep up. So we filed this study under fiction. And they are now they're doing that sports team playbook. We're threatening to leave Philadelphia. City council members are falling all over themselves. Oh, I'm off slide. Anyways, this was city council posting on its Instagram that I can't let the team leave. But even their own funding could not keep the following out of the community impact study. We know that if this arena were to be built, we're going to be destroyed. And so the city has this in their hands, right? Like, you're reading your own study that was paid for by the developers, and you would think they'd say, okay, no more, but that's not happening. So we're still fighting. I want to circle back to this question of resistance as a tradition, and I pulled out some of my family pictures. So over there on the left is my oldest son. He was 12. That was the baseball stadium fight. He's now 36. And the man next to him is Chong. In this picture, he was 73. On the right, it is my daughter and her best friend. They both went to the FACT charter school. And they're wearing those T-shirts. And And you'll notice that they were in the casino fight. You notice the t-shirts say there's a pattern here, because we keep recycling this damn t-shirt. There's no more room on the damn t-shirts, so they just have to stop, you know? Last year, we had a protest against the arena at City Hall. Chong insisted on speaking. He wanted the young people to see he was still fighting. He was 96 years old, he's now 97. And these two little girls, they went on to become the founders of the Students' Coalition in Chinatown, and they are the founders of the Junior Arts. We built a resistance. Let's see, is it playing? Yeah. Against some of the largest predatory real estate developers on the planet. They have money and power, but we have the people. And this is the march that just happened this past Saturday. This is the line after it poured rain and we lost about a third of the group. Some of us might make the mistake of thinking that older non-English speaking folks in the community wouldn't take up this fight. But at the rally this Saturday, Bobby Zhang, one of our non-English speaking Fukushima speakers, he brought fire to this. He said, "We are here to ask the city council and the mayor, if you saw someone about to be killed and you could do something to stop it, would you? This is your choice. You can choose to protect our community that has stood for 150 years, or you can choose to watch us die. But we promise you, if you choose to watch us die, if you choose to destroy Chinatown, we will fight you to the end. We will protest on the streets and in your offices and in the courts. We will never give up. Long live Chinatown." Let's get into the end of Iraq. It was, we estimate 4,000 to 5,000 people, including members of the Apache stronghold in Arizona, who were going to the Supreme Court to fight to protect their sacred land from copper mining. And they heard about our struggle, and they came to Philadelphia to open this protest with their blessing. So, thank you.
It is deeply moving to see the cross-racial solidarity in this decade-long fight. I'd like to invite Brien, Chow, and Joe Reilly at this time to present Seattle Chinatown International District.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brien Chow, and I'm a Chong board member of the Endangered, and also the co-founder of Transit Equity Crawl, along with Benevolent, our Benevolent. And Benevolent is very passionate about our fight for demonstration. First of all, I'd like to know who's from out south. Please raise your hand. Very good. Let's give a hand for all the people that came from out down. Right. Also, I have a little history with Joe here. I went to a Chinese school for 7 years here in Kristen. So give me a big hand. I'm not And this is Aki. He's a new member to our team, and let him introduce himself.
Hey everybody, my name is Joe. I have the name Aki after my family's surname of Akiyama. I was the policy communications director at a local all-volunteer transit advocacy store called Seattle Subway, envisioning a world in which you do not need a car in the second highest expense for any household in order to live, not just your life, but a really truly successful life in crunch. My grandfather narrowly avoided internment back when he was living elderly in the 1940s. And he would always take me to this Chinatown as a kid. So I have a lot of fond memories as a kid here. It's a pleasure to be here.
At this time, I'd like to welcome all of you for a welcome. We are going to focus on our presentation on how $54 billion transit project called Sound Transit 3 will benefit or harm Seattle Chinatown, depending on how and where it is constructed. The history, this story is very similar to probably everyone in this room, and you're probably experienced in your fight for equal equity. We all want equities, and that's what we're here. Lovely history. There's a 4th Avenue choice light rail station and the 5th Avenue choice of a light rail station. The 5th Avenue station was already decided to be put in by the governments around here, the county government, the city government, and maybe the state, but I don't think the state. But anyways, what they were going to do, they were going to build a station down 5th Avenue, which would have taken out 35% of the Chinatown area. When we got this news out to the rest of the community, the whole community came together to say no. And now they are not going to build on 5th Avenue. And that's because everybody came together and wanted to tap down, So we really feel good about that because, one, the whole community was all together as one fighting for the same purpose. And then if you get a whole community fighting for the same purpose, you build a really good brotherhood and relations with everyone. After they decided not to go down the 5th, 4th was the second option. You either take 5th or you take 4th. Those were presented to the communities, 5th or 4th. So thus the cry to move forward on 4th came about as we did not want 5th. Those were the 2 choices they gave us, 4th and 5th. 5th was taken off the table, so naturally we thought 4th was going to be the choice. The choice where they would build a super hub where all 3 transit lines would meet. All 3 transit lines would be here in Chinatown, which means everybody in our community can go everywhere the light rail station shows they'll choose to go to. But for some reason, the government decided that we needed a north and south station that's located outside the boundaries, 10 minutes away from the 4th Avenue, and basically isolate our Chinatown CID here from the line 3, which means a lot of people will not come to Chinatown because they bypass our station. Now, by moving to 4th, you do not have the so-called impact that 5th had. By moving to 4th, there is no loss of Chinatown. But by moving to north and south, you're taking the station away from Chinatown. And the decision has not been made yet. It does make sense to bring it to 4th, where the whole region could benefit from that decision. Really, county executives is going to build a little neighborhood on the North Station choice, which means they're giving a station away again. That is a 10-minute walk for our residents here in Chinatown. That's a 10-minute walk for the people that take the number 3 line to get to Chinatown. That means if you want to stop for a bowl of noodles, you must walk 10 minutes to get to a bowl of noodles. Unnecessary. Fourth Avenue does not do that. Fourth Avenue puts you right in Chinatown. Help me out here. It's common sense. We've been talking to the executive, talking to the board, explaining to them it's common sense to go to Fourth. They want to put a station on the south end, outside the boundaries of Chinatown, a good 8-minute walk to some station underground, 2 elevator rides underground. It's not good. Now, why do I tell you this? Because you can get the government to change their mind if you attack them early enough. And you have to attack them very early, and you have to share the story with the whole region, not just the people in Chinatown. You have to fight for the whole region, for anything that you fight for. Because if they take away Chinatown, they're taking away the region's Chinatown, and everybody loves Chinatown.
I'm not sure if you care too much. Really, Brien and Betty are kind of heroes of mine. I can't tell you the number of hours over their retirement years that they have spent in countless hours of Sound Transit Board meetings. And if there's anything that people typically don't want to do in their retirement, it's going to transit board meetings. It is phenomenal, the hours and years they've spent. I do want to acknowledge, though, that it's interesting hearing from our Philadelphia group here that that these are different types of projects. They're dealing with the stadium. This is transit. Historically, transit is something that tends to help communities when done right. And it is also worth noticing too that we now don't have the same amount of solidarity in our communities for it happening because of this new option. There's a lot of research that we're just not going to be able to cover in time today. There are other perspectives that I encourage you to go back to and listen to and learn from. These are complicated projects. Transit projects always are. So I just want to give that caveat. Just because we feel we've done our research on your side and we have our perspective to acknowledge that. So we have sort of, I guess, as many presentations do, 3 Ps kind of a thing, and it's going to be publicity, markers, and measure. There's going to be a lot of things in similar presentation to see already, so I don't want to cover too much of what we've already said. But the first one is going to be publicity, and what I like about the word publicity is, by definition, it's the notice and intention to someone or something by the media. It's not just price, but where does the spotlight go? And as we all know, misrepresentation or underrepresentation is often the 2 biggest things that happen here. So Brien can speak to a little bit more about sort of the specific sort of, I guess, tips and tricks of elected.
We have a script, and I'm trying to follow it, but I'm just getting too emotional, and I just can't listen to it. A lot of you know that you need to create an organization to take the lead, to build, and to fight for, and fight with. And you all know that you need to brand it. You need to brand it so it's easy to remember. We branded ours Move Forward on 4th, on day 1. That's because, again, the 5th was the choice and 4th was the choice. But now that we have more than 7th, which is bad, you're bad, we still want to move forward because we made the right decision at the beginning. So when you make a brand, make sure that brand's going to go all the way through. We here in Seattle have been doing this fighting for 3 years now. So this is all new to me. And it's it's very easy to fight for. Be available at all times to meet anyone and everyone you can meet. Everyone you meet is very important. Very important. All to their strengths. Use their strengths. Don't ask them to invent something else. Use their strengths. I met a guy who came up to me from the Issaquah area. He's an engineer on how to build light rail stations. So what he's going to do is put a report together of all the light rail stations around the nation. And then he's going to compare it to Seattle. Seattle's, with the north and south, is broken. It's broken. Easy, sensible thoughts. And again, Fourth Avenue does not have the construction in character and Fifth Avenue would have. Fourth Avenue will not destroy the Chinatown CID area. Repeat all your facts. Attack with facts. Facts are very important. If you communicate with all facts, there's nothing that could be said. And keep it simple. Keep it very simple. It's a lot easier for people to understand and communicate when you keep it all simple and be very vocal. We're on slide 4 now.
You're at the. We're actually at time, dude.
Yeah, no, I didn't have their time.
With research.
You want to
Yeah, to round it up.
Yeah. You're not seeing us get to the top thing was either. Well, I think all of you got the message. A lot of you are from out of town. A lot of you know the basics, and that's what's needed. The basics. Go to your basic support. Legislate sound toast in the need your hands. That's what I'm saying publicly. You're legit out. Okay, any questions?
We'll have time for questions at the end. Thank you so much. And distinguishing up.
And while you guys are here, we do have some pamphlets about that project. So if there's an interest, just walk around the streets. Feel free to bring out to this game or being at. So look at it.
Get started.
And it's about to agree.
Hey, good morning. Here are the Kristins from Little Tokyo. So we'd like to introduce you to Los Angeles Little Tokyo, historically and today. So all year, we've been celebrating Little Tokyo's 140th birthday. Here's us celebrating the significant milestone last month during Kisei Week. So if you come to Little Tokyo, you probably think it's thriving. Yet there are a number of long-standing external threats that will keep us cognizant that we need to remain proactive in ensuring that Little Tokyo continues to retain its character for another 140 plus years. It's not that a building is immediately threatened for demolition. Many of the threats might not be apparent. So we really wanted to bring attention to the existential threats that have long challenged Little Tokyo. And so this is the reason why we, on behalf of Sustainable Little Tokyo, applied to the National Trust list of America's 11 most endangered historic places. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history and just some of the threats, and then I'll turn it over to Kristen. So although this neighborhood, Little Tokyo, came into existence because of racial prejudice and has endured forced removal, eminent domain, urban renewal, and gentrification, it has really remained the heart of Japanese American communities since 1894. Little Tokyo is the second oldest ethnic neighborhood in the city of Los Angeles and has reflected the diversity that has long characterized this region. It's located in downtown Los Angeles, and in the 1880s, it became a refuge for Japanese immigrant laborers since racial housing covenants really didn't affect this neighborhood. And as immigration continued and families of Americans put down roots, the majority of Japanese Americans in Los Angeles, which became the largest population of Japanese Americans in the continental U.S., lived within a 5 to 10 mile radius of this neighborhood. Little Tokyo is where Japanese immigrants and their descendants established businesses, built social or cultural institutions, and came for a taste of home. In the 1930s, Nisei Week began, which brought the community together to frequent the businesses, enjoy Ondo, folk dancing, and other Japanese activities, which I see pictured at the left. And then in 1942, during the mass removal and subsequent incarceration of Japanese Americans living on the West Coast, Little Tokyo was a gathering site, and this is why we say it's a site of conscience. With businesses and residences in Little Tokyo vacant, the neighborhood became home to African Americans from the South and sought wartime employment. During this time, the area was known as Bronzeville and a vibrant epicenter for jazz. Miles Davis and Charlie Parker performed at the Finale Club located on First Street in 1946. And so this photograph on the right shows sort of like the precursor to the mass removal. And this is really in the heart of Little Tokyo today, where the Japanese American National Museum is located. In 1945, Japanese Americans' families began returning to Los Angeles, although many settled broadly across Southern California. And this is when Little Tokyo really significantly diminished in size, and it was blighted, and subsequently became the target of urban renewal. Nevertheless, the community showed resilience. A number of businesses, as well as cultural and community institutions, continued to draw Japanese Americans back to the neighborhood. Little Tokyo businesses helped to shape Japanese food culture. Tokyo Paikon is said to have invented the California roll, Minka Hawaiian confectionery introduced mochi ice cream to the U.S., and the Mayer Rice Cracker Company helped to introduce rice crackers to a broad audience. Little Tokyo was also an important backdrop to the Asian American movement, and in the 1960s came young Japanese Americans and other Americans of Asian descent and voice, and really a sense of pride and identity. By the 1970s, though, the neighborhood had significantly diminished in size to about 3 square blocks, and in 1992, Los Angeles uprising had a significant economic impact on downtown Los Angeles as well as Little Tokyo. Many businesses began to move out or shut down, even those that had been in Little Tokyo for decades. So by the mid-1990s, I think although Little Tokyo remained a gathering place for a Japanese American community, it was really evident that the neighborhood was at a crossroads regarding its survival as an ethnic community. So for decades, we really want to highlight that preservation has been a strategy that various individuals and organizations have deployed in order to assert the significance of this place and provide some protection. So while the neighborhood has undergone some change, there are areas that really remained relatively unchanged since the early half of the 20th century. So like the Honba Buddhist temple building, the first Buddhist temple built in Los Angeles, Fudetsuno, which is a family-operated Japanese confectionery celebrating its 121st anniversary, and the former Far East Cafe, a chop suey restaurant, and its iconic neon sign really remain familiar anchors on this block up First Street. So in 1995, the original commercial corridor along First Street, which you see here, was designated as a National Historic Landmark, which is huge. And additionally, several other buildings, including the former Union Church, were landmarked by the city of Los Angeles. So there are some historic landmarks in the city, or sorry, in our neighborhood, that community members are really taking a lean on to help that. So in tandem with the landmark designation, neighborhood history is also documented through a timeline that's inscribed on the sidewalk, and public art installations really highlight some of the community's history. And then you have organizations like the Japanese American National Museum and the Japanese American Cultural and Community Center, which are among some of the organizations that have really been preserving material culture and intangible cultural heritage for this neighborhood. And yet, while these concerted efforts to preserve place are important, there remain these long-standing external threats that have included expansion of metro public transit. Little Tokyo Station, Arts District Station, recently reopened, and it's the second, I think it's going to be the second busiest transportation hub in greater Los Angeles region. Civic Center Master Plan has always sort of threatened
Little Tokyo. The downtown revitalization and make really large and living development projects and increased property values and made Little Tokyo a very coveted area for this for national chain businesses and large luxury housing developments. So we've been asked to talk about how Little Tokyo is similar, and you can see large similarities to its other neighborhoods, but also how it's, how we're doing things maybe slightly differently. So I think that the National Trust really recommends historical significance of Little Tokyo and understand personal pressures that continue to threaten it. But they were really more interested in the strategies that have been developed and deployed in Los Angeles, Little Tokyo. The Little Tokyo Community Council, which Kristen represents, has been really key to staying on top of the threats and developing strategies that would fit the needs of our community, but can also be applicable to other neighborhoods as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Kristen to talk about community strategy. Thank you. I have like 2 minutes, so I'm just going to go as fast as I can. No. Brad rolled it. Also 12, so it's hard one. I will just say first that we had a chance to visit Philly, Chinatown last year, and it was a really wonderful experience. Thank you, Brien, for taking me around. And I think the thing I really reflected on is how much of our histories were the same. I'm sure this true across all of our communities and that thing on things. Right? We've endured so many decades and generations of struggle and encroachment, displacement, and all these things. But I think for us, at least in Philadelphia and as well as the Los Tokyo's, what it means is we really learn to continue to adapt and evolve and innovate, because every 10 to 15 years, they're in an incredible challenge, and we have to figure out how do we really meet these threats and continue to fight for our survival and for our future. This is just a quick snapshot. I want to say there are many, many, many efforts and initiatives and organizations in Little Tokyo that come out of this 140-year history of fighting for the future of Little Tokyo. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about what the Little Tokyo Community Council does, as well as our current and the Little Tokyo. But I want to acknowledge that there's so many other folks in the community who do this work excellent together. We are your collaborative partners are going to try to fill in each other's gaps. And then if we identify need, someone really steps out to try to take that on. I think that's really beautiful. Let's see here. So for the thing that as Kristen mentioned, there are a lot of threats and challenges for us right now. Similar to both Seattle and Philadelphia, we have seen a lot of transit projects in our last 25 years. So that's kind of this era of threats and displacement that we're seeing. We had our first metro project with the Gold Line. That was also right after the city tried to build it down. And Little Tokyo is, again, common history. And when I started working in Little Tokyo around 2008, that is when the Gold Line was just getting ready to open, but Metro was already proposing a brand new project, and that's the original connector like Kristen mentioned. Yeah. As mentioned, the Metro folks told us that this was anticipated to be the second easiest transportation hub in the entire region, and all these benefits and all the told us that Little Tokyo has a sacrifice for the greater good of LA. And we're like, we have sacrificed so many times. So thank you for telling us that we will not do that. And then, so with that, I think that what we really realized through going through the Gold Line construction first is that, yes, obviously public transit is great. We want to be able to give places, but that's hard. We want to have that access. There are also impacts of having new public transit. There is real estate speculation. There are market changes. There's the ways the rent goes up. There's the way that developers come and say, oh, look at this land. We can see this as a great opportunity for us to make money, and they care more about making money versus the people that been there. And I think for me, when I think about gentrification, I think about how, everyone wants clean and safe neighborhoods. So we all want to be a thriving, beautiful neighborhood, but we don't. We, the folks who have been here trying to survive, they deserve to benefit from that as well. When they are displaced or kicked out of their neighborhood or lose their house, lose their business, then who is this all for? And I think that's really the question. I think preservation is a beautiful tool, and I think what I appreciate about them move to thinking about community, not just politics, is we talk about Little Tokyo or Chinatown, it's the people, right? That buildings are great, but if we are not in those buildings, it's a really great building, but it's not necessarily our China. So I think that's something that we've really thought about. So with a regional connector and the new rise of public transportation, we realized that over the years, we already lost a lot of our housing. So the residents that we have left are actually in mostly protected areas. And then we've seen a big rise in market rate residential. So if you come to Little Tokyo now, you'll see buildings that look like every other city across the nation because they're all built by the same company like APIAHiP. So we have all those. So there's the other thing of culture. I think in Little Tokyo, we're pretty lucky to have so many organizations and we have a really strong grip on our culture as an APIAHiP, and we also have the political power as well. But where we are really struggling, and where we have been struggling for the last 10, 20 years, is our small businesses. Little Tokyo historically doesn't own our own land. So that makes it really hard when folks come in and start buying up the building and making their tenants for doubling the rent, things like that. So one thing that we've been focusing on how do we support our staying businesses. So this is more of whatever micro strategy. We have things like Go Little Tokyo. This is an initiative we actually got Metro to pay for during the regional connector construction. And it really is supporting small businesses. It's uplifting their narrative, their voices. It's trying to, as more people come in with the regional connector open, we want them to go to our businesses. We don't want them to go to the Starbucks across the street. We want them to go to the mom-and-pop small businesses. We also have them provide more tech support. So I think for us, a lot of it is having the assessment analysis of what problem, and then trying to figure out what are those strategies that really attack that. So we've been spending a lot of time with small businesses. I will just stop there and move on because I think my time card already went up one last slide. The other big strategy that we have to deploy is Sustainable Tokyo. Sustainable Tokyo started in 2012, and it was a recognition that as regional connector comes in, everything is going to change, and we don't really know what we're going to do about it. Private property is hard. We are not millionaires. We cannot buy a $70 million building. But when we did have the Little Tokyo, we had 3 pieces of land that were publicly owned and not developed yet. So we said, let's build a vision for those parcels and say, what do you want there? What is the community? What do you need? If we have the opportunity to build anything, what would that be? And what are we afraid of doing? And how do we build that thing to help support that? So we came with our Sustainable Tokyo vision. We took a year to plan. We did another year of just the visioning session and then published a document. It is 100 pages. You can read it online if you love to read things. But I think what came out of it is really, we are so used to other community fighting against things. We really wanted to push ourselves to fight for things. And I think that's a really big lesson because sometimes you're constantly so under pressure for things, you don't have the bandwidth. And the brave is just something, well, what do we actually want? You're always fighting against it. So really pushing yourself to say, what do we want instead, was a really big move for the Little Tokyo. And since then, we have constantly done visioning, all these things. I'm actually happy to report that as in this year, we've broken ground on one of the parcels. So Little Tokyo, there we work with we're getting that 220 units at Kernis Warner Housing, space for legacy businesses on the ground, building public space, finding all these things. And I'm hoping that we start moving forward on the other 2 parcels. So I think just now where we are, the snapshot is we are still seeing the loss of our businesses. I knew we lost something like 50 businesses over 10 years old in the last 15 years. And that's just the ones over 10 years old. There's many more that are younger than that we have lost. So we are really constantly fighting to protect our remaining about 50 legacy businesses that we have left. In the meantime, we fight to more community control and self-determination over our community, whether that is building our own dreams and visions or fighting against the folk that continue to flip in and encroach on our neighborhood. And I think that we are going to defend the babies in the 11 most endangered, we're we probably need to endangered. I'm not on the stage. When we talk about being an endangered food before, like, is this good? Are we celebrating? I'm like, what? We're not kind of celebrating, like, we're endangered. But really what it means for us, I know, like, I understand those of shame comments, but I think for us what it is, it's like a flag in the air, right? That we are still here, we're still fighting for a future, and we want people to know about it. We want them to not just come in the neighborhood and look on the wing and say, oh, it's so poppin', like, how can you possibly be bigger? We want people to see that threat energy, the service, they still continue to support this neighborhood. We're really happy to be part of the 11 most endangered. Thank you for having us, and I'll just stop there because we're out of time. Thank you. Have here well into lunch hour right now, so if anyone is Starbucks and needs to go, the programming will resume at the Wing Luke at 1 p.m. But if you have interest in sticking around, we have time for 2 audience questions. We're going to bypass the planned discussion part of this. So anyone has any questions for any of our panelists today, please speak up.
Thank you, panelists, for your inspiring talk. But real quickly, how do you strategize to come together? Because you have different groups and organizations that have different purposes and like the objective. Yet you have sibling values, and you close the door and have that full-fledged discussion about coming together toward common goals and objectives. I hear this.
Great question. It's really hard. It's really hard to put together, right? I think urgency, the fact that our community is like under attack, and our desire for preservation leads us to the same direction and destiny. You know, that's as short and answer.
Still be definitely. I actually received some advice from a group that lost a transit project a while ago in Seattle, the Green Line, sending Telewander. And they said the number one thing that they did not do is they did not reach out to enough people who were different than them. They did not reach out to enough groups that had potentially different opinions and different parts to play. And so they recommended the number one thing we can do is to keep organizing a celebration of all of the possible organizations, people, entities you can think of who might be related to the project and the state. And really, if you need to do an emotional fund or something, I mean, really being to genuinely care about their side. It can't be faked. It can't be just something you do to check off something on the checklist. You really genuinely have to have a spirit of curiosity and care, and you might find that you'll hear something that you just reminded me of, or maybe makes the legislation you're working on a little bit better. So I would say always make that list and be sure to ask every person you chat to, what are you concerned about? Like really what are you concerned about?
What I'd just quickly add to that is, so my organization, the Local Token Community Council, we are a coalition in the neighborhood. Bill is one of our co-founders, Helen Bill. And we are made up of residents, as Turns and Tumbles, culture community organizations, and other message stakeholders. I think the idea that I know TCC by Billy can correct me, but Little Toke is the bigger picture. Like we all have our own interests, we have our own different agendas, but if Illuswick is not here, the rest of us are around for as well. What does it mean to be the only one surviving? So I think that's something that's really helped us over the years is figuring out what do we actually align and agree on and focusing on that where we can work together. Maybe not always going right to direct confrontation, but being sort of working some out in other ways and then slowly tackling the harder issues. I also think it's definitely easier when the enemy is from outside and you can sort of have that common target. But then you just have to figure out like where you're combining together versus when it's a community issue and you might be more in contention with each other. But yeah, I agree. I think just really seeing each other as not disposable. Like we are community and the community has chosen family. So you have to figure it out, right? You have to go to that family party, maybe just slowly rotate the room. You don't have to exactly interact all the time, but like you know that you are stuck with each other, that we care about each other, even though sometimes we're straight up from that. So I think, yeah, it's just really be committed to each other and to work that really good together.
And I was just going to talk about a little bit about the coalition building we do outside of the work in Chinatown. The developers very consciously pit the Asian American community in Philadelphia against Black community. They got the African American Chamber of Commerce, which is notoriously reactionary, as well as the Black clergy, also notoriously reactionary, to support their project. We are always conscious, not just now, but when we're not under threat. We stand in solidarity with African American Latino groups across the city. They know that we're getting them, so they come and answer for us. If they're getting ready to tear down the UC townhomes, we're standing on the front lines with them. And I think it's really critical for us to recognize that while we struggle for our communities, there are communities across our cities that are struggling around the same things, and we can't expect them to be there for us if we're not there for them.
Thank you so much to all the panelists. I hope you'll join me in thanking for their ability and the team.
And with that, we have kicked off forum. So enjoy your lunch break. See you back at the Wingwood Museum at 1. Thank you, everyone.